Let's start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. وبه نستعين على كل أمور الدنيا والدين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ونور قلوبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نوعنا تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. يا حبابتي يا سيدتي يا فاطمة يا بنت رسول الله صلاة الله وسلامه لتم لك على أبيك وأمك وعليك وعلى زوجك وعلى بنيك ومن والاكم لله. يا حبابتي يا سيدتي يا فاطمة يا بنت رسول الله صلاة الله وسلامه لتم لك على أبيك وأمك وعليك وعلى زوجك وبنيك وعلى من والاكم لله. يا حبابتي يا سيدتي يا فاطمة يا بنت رسول الله صلاة الله وسلامه لتم لك على أبيك وأمك وعليك وعلى زوجك وعلى بنيك وعلى من والاكم لله في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلمات الفاتحة. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And so just for those who just came in, we were discussing that as Isha gets later, right? So it is, we think we just keep the class to 7 o'clock because my husband comes back pretty much by 8 plus, you know. So I think we keep it to 7, then we can pray Jumu'ah together after the class at 8. After at least we all ensure, those who like the Shafi'is here all can ensure they get Jumu'ah with adults. Right, no, Jumu'ah with children all the time. Her daughter goes between us. Either she's praying, then her daughter prays with her, and I'm praying, her daughter comes and prays with me. But sometimes we pray, we are clean together at the same time. So alhamdulillah, mashallah. At least we get Jumu'ah, you know, here. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. We are on chapter, so we're taking one chapter per lesson. Right, so on Friday and Saturday, yesterday we had one lesson, and then today one lesson. Friday, Saturday we are doing to the Fatima al-Zahra. Right, Sundays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays we're doing Book of Assistance. Oh, you got the memo. Yeah. Saturday and Fridays Iqdulul. And then what do you call this? Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
I think you put a link on most of them. I haven't known.
Yeah, I think it was on the WhatsApp, right? It was there. I think you had to put it on the group description, so people know what. Is it on the description?
Yeah,
is there? Okay,
but we should put it again because a few new people have come.
No. Right, so it, now, yeah. So we're on Iqdulul. Okay, today Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. من كتاب إقدلول لتأليف السيد المرحوم محمد بن حسن بن علوي الحداد رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله به وبعلم في الدارين. From the book The Necklace of Pearls by Al-Habib Muhammad bin Hassan bin Alawi Al-Haddad, who just passed away earlier last month. He passed away one day before the 20th of Jumal al-Akhirah. He just passed away last month, right, the writer of this book. Right, so mashallah, you know, someone sincere, right, to it. And we mentioned it in the first lesson that this book is really one of its kind, right, and one of its kind, first of its kind. Right, because there's been a lot written about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a lot of mawlids written about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, but about Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra in this way. Right, the whole point of this kind of writing is so that people get acquainted with these individuals easily. Right, so the whole point of Mawlid is that people memorize seerah. And there's all points of Maulid, right? So our people learn Sirah easily. And so which is why, like for us, in Singapore, a group of us, we have begun to translate Maulids and give like a brief, an easy, readable explanation, like on the Maulid, right? So it is, the whole point of it is to keep it simple, so people get acquainted and they memorize. And they know about the stories, in and out, mashallah. For Sayyidah Fatima Zahra is the first of its kind. There is a second one, right, called Al-Gharra by Habib Al-Bakr Adani, right? So that is the second of its kind. And then, in a sense, like, of this kind of work, whereby it's written in this way. Right? So when it's read also, you try and read it in a way whereby you, in a sense, you highlight the rhyming. Right? Or the it's not exactly a song, or a nasheed, right? But there's a tempo, right, going on through it. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Al-Fasl Thalith في جهادها وتحملها للدعوة رضي الله عنها. وقد نشأت هذه السيدة الطاهرة منذ طفولتها الباكرة مجاهدة صابرة. لقد شهدت الدعوة منذ بدايتها وعاشت أحداثها إلى نهايتها. ويتجلى جهادها في مرافقة أبيها الكريم منذ بداية الدعوة إلى الدين القويم. كانت معه إبان مواجهة الكفار وما يلاقيه منهم من أخطار. وأتاح لها صغر سنها أن تسير معه حيثما سار. وكبرت الزهراء وكبر معها عزمها الوقار وتطلعها للجهاد. فقد كانت يوم أحد مع المجاهدين تضمد الجراح وتسقي المحتضرين. وفي يوم أحد كانت فاطمة الحبيبة لجرح أبيها المداوية الطبيبة. وكان علي يصب الماء وهي تغسل الدم عن وجهه الشريف لما لم يتوقف النزيف. عمدت إلى حصير فأحرقته وضمدت برماده الجرح فالتأم وتوقف النزيف وزال الألم. فأكرم بها من مجاهدة سابقة مخلصة صادقة. وتجلى صبرها عليها السلام في مواجهة الأحداث الجسام. صبرت على شظائف العيش حين قاطعتهم قريش. وصحبت أبويها في الحصار وذاقت ما ذاقوا من جوع وإعصار. وإثر انتهاء أزمنة الحصار العاتية فقدت أمها الحانية. وتلقت كل ذلك بنفس راضية. وهكذا يكون المسلم في كل أطواره راضيا بقضاء الله واختياره. وما الشجاعة غير صبر الساعة والفوز في العقبى لكل صبار. سلام عليكم بما صبرتم فنعم عقبى الدار. رضي الله عن فاطمة الزهراء وأرضاها. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله أزكى صلاة وأنماها. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So the third chapter, right, it is on her jihad and her and what she went through with regards to da'wah. And mashallah, you will see today, those of you who came for the Awatama with Hababa Salma. We had it earlier today, and Awatama with Hababa Salma. And Da'wah, it is one of the, it is an area, right? Da'wah is an area that first and foremost every Muslim should have a portion, right, in this, right? Because it is the first commandment on every prophet. Right? Every prophet, every messenger, the first commandment on them, right, is to really, right, to take the message and then to tell those who are around them, right? Because that brings us back all the way into why are we here in the first place, right? So this is why da'wah is core, right? It's core in our existence, right? Because human beings have forgotten why we're here, right, in the first place. And if you take it in Sabilul Iddikar with Huzra Zainab, I think you all do it during the khatam, right, once a month, right? Sabilul Iddikar, which is the lives of men, correct? Lives of I think the English title is more rings a bell, Lives of Men. Sabilul Iddikar, that is the Arabic title, right, of Imam Haddad's book. It goes back to that, right? That that we're in a time zone, right, in a marhala, right, in a position whereby it's the shortest part of our existence, but it determines the longest part of our existence. The shortest part right now in this world, about 60-70 years. We're gonna, if you are lucky, right, some people 20, 30, some people 40, and to go by 40. Subhanallah, we don't know how long it's gonna be in this dunya for us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala please barakah in our lifespan. How long or how short, it is about the barakah. Right? It's the barakah in the life. Like Imam An-Nawawi was 45 years old, he passed away. Right? And you see the kind of books that he wrote, Imam An-Nawawi, and up to today of what is studied by the books, of Imam An-Nawawi, mashallah, he passed away at 45. 45 is very young. And they say if you were to divide the number of pages that he wrote, all together over his entire lifespan, from beginning of his life to the end of his life, they say you have come to about several pages a day for him to write. If you divide the number of pages that he wrote to his entire lifespan, and one thinks, subhanallah, these are people who are like, they have barakah in their time. They're producing, they're teaching, they're doing all kinds of things, mashallah. But Imam Nawawi, he never got married. He didn't have time to get married. Mashallah. A lot of scholars were like that. I didn't actually have time to get married. And Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he married late. In his 40s, and he got married. Imam Nawawi passed before he got married, before he could get married, you will see. But they were occupied. They were occupied in studying, teaching, writing, spreading, traveling, this and that. That a lot of them put off marriage. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them. Mashallah, I think they would still have all this time. Mashallah. Then later on, in their older age, they got married. Mashallah. But alhamdulillah, there is barakah in everything. Right? And sometimes, in the situations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us in, right, that, how many people, when Allah pushes you, right, into family, to have children, right, into marriage, that you find yourselves, you're forced to, like, buck up in a sense. And you're forced to get better, right, because you have young ones watching you. Right, and so you're forced into getting yourselves together and doing your prayers, early, or doing your Quran properly, and doing all kind of things, because there are younger ones watching you. So you kind of like, parenthood is a form of tazkiyah. It is a tazkiyah, right? It purifies you, right? And it's a form of, and motherhood especially is a form of taraqi. Taraqi meaning it leads you higher and higher in levels. Motherhood, it forces you basically, because to do it well, you need to really push aside yourself. Your self needs to be eliminated from the equation, and this is why it is a form of, it is a tariqah in itself. Motherhood as tariqah in itself, because it forces you, right, to wake up early in the morning for tahajjud, right, because the baby wakes you up. So you're forced to get up, mashallah. At least you get up something, and you do some, zikr or whatsoever, right? Because you're forced to. No one's, you're not given the choice, mashallah. Right? But mashallah, Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra, her jihad began from a very young age of 5 years old, because her father received the message when she was 5 years old, and the jihad that she went through lasted her entire life till she passed away, radhiyallahu anha wa ardaha. And even in the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also a jihad. And in fact, the Sahaba would say that of all the afflictions that afflicted them in their lifetime, as Muslims, that nothing came close to the affliction of the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was nothing more difficult, whether it was Uhud or Badr or the Battle of the Trench of Khandaq or whatever, or even the hypocrites and the kuffar in Mecca and whatever. Nothing came close to as being as hard as the day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. Right, and we know that the more you love a person, the more you're affected by the death of that person. And no one loved the Prophet ﷺ more than Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. And that is also one of the reasons why it is said that she reached a level above her sisters, because none of her sisters went through the death of Rasulullah ﷺ. She's the only one, like, who had to bear with the death of Rasulullah ﷺ, because they all passed away before him. Like, he went through their deaths. And mashallah, his level is so high because he went through the deaths of 6 out of his 7 children. Subhanallah, just to go through the death of one child would bring someone's level so high, because it is a difficult thing to go through. And we know it. There's a statement that says that, people say that it's so hard to give birth to a child. It's so hard to bear a child. And the statement goes, it's even harder to bury a child. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam buried 6 out of 7 of his children. 6 children he buried. 5 from Sayyidah Khadija and 1 from Maria, the slave girl. So 3 boys and 3 girls he buried. The boys all in infancy, around age of 1 or 2, and the girls all of his daughters were in their 20s. Most of them in their 20s. I think none of his daughters reached 30. Maybe Sayyidah Zainab reached 30. But they were all in that age, this age, right? 20, 30, subhanallah. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra passed, she was 28. At this all young people. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, radiallahu anha wa ardaha. So from the beginning of the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says here, rahimahullah ta'ala, and so this pure lady, Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, who was born in Mecca, she grew up since a very early age, from her childhood, very, very early on. She was someone who strove and she was patient, because from 5 years old she saw what she saw, and to the point whereby we know the story of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, and her standing up against the Quraysh. And when she was 10 years old, right? To the story before, right? She stood up against the Quraysh when she was 10 years old. And that was because she used to follow her father around. Because she was so worried for her father. She knew that at 5 years old, when the message came down, when the wahyu came, she saw already with her own eyes how the people turned on her father. So for 5 years of her life, she saw that her father was most beloved by the people. And with the coming down of the wahyu, she saw how they turned on him. And she being very protective over her father at that age, from 5 years old, being so protective over her father, she would follow him around, to ensure he's okay. A small girl following her around her father. She won't stay near him, but she watched from afar, and just see whether he's okay. So the incident of Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, one of the evil people in Mecca. The incident whereby Rasulullah was praying by the Kaaba and he was in sujood, and someone had just slaughtered a camel by the Kaaba. And you know how they used to do it last time? They would slaughter the camel and they would throw the blood and the meat and the insides of the animal against the Kaaba door, or the Kaaba. Yeah, they would throw it. It was the way they used to do things. It was just basically they would throw it. They would throw the dead creature by the Kaaba. There's a place where they would throw their sacrifices, there. So someone had just, alhamdulillah for Islam. Alhamdulillah for Islam. No one's throwing dead meat everywhere. Can you imagine, because the Kaaba is dead meat and rotting meat and blood and whatsoever. And then people are going around the Kaaba naked and everything. Alhamdulillah for Islam. And you wouldn't we want to go to Mecca. You'd be MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Of course, Rasulullah grew up in a society. He saw all these things going on around him, which was what drove him to the cave. Because it was too painful to see. And he was worried for his people. What are they doing? Subhanallah. And that day, I think, it was my other Sirah class with Ustazah Iman. She was saying that, they even have an idol, who that was called Isaf wa Na'ila. Isa wa Na'ila, this idol by the Kaaba. This is see how their jahiliyyah, how their ignorance was. This idol Isa wa Na'ila, they were actually a man and a woman turned into stone. Allah turned them into stone because they were fornicating by the Kaaba. Right, so Allah turned them into stone. Then these people pray to these stone human beings. They are thinking, what in the world are they thinking? Right? You know, these people were punished and turned into stone. Then you made them into idols. But the jahiliyyah was like that. Was so ingrained and so bad. This is the jahiliyyah. So basically, somebody had slaughtered a camel near the Kaaba and thrown all the dead meat and the blood and the intestines and so on there. And Abu Jahl was there. I really wonder how did they stand it? It's so smelly, right? How did they sit by the Kaaba and just watch dead meat? You know, rotten meat all around. What's going on, right? MashaAllah. So Rasulullah was praying there by the Kaaba. And then Abu Jahl sees this. And Abu Jahl says to the disbelievers, which of you will go and take that, you know, the intestines of the camel and place it on the back of Muhammad while he's in sujood. So of course the worst of them, Utbah bin Abi Mu'ayt, he got up. And this story would really highlight the beginning of a jihad. When she was in this very tender age, you know, less than 10 years old. And she was barely 10 at this point. So she's a young girl. So this evil man, Utbah bin Abi Mu'ayt, he took the challenge, he took the intestines, went over to Rasulullah when he was doing his sujood, and threw the intestines on the blessed back of Rasulullah. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra was by the side watching this. Like all the other Muslims who were there, they were too terrified to come forward. Because first and foremost, a lot of them were slaves, they were weaker individuals, and they were hiding their Islam. So to come forward, would be risky, because Abu Jahl was right there. And they saw what Abu Jahl did to Bilal. Right? So, you know, and they know what the Quraysh could do if they knew that you were Muslim. Right? So there were Muslims around, but they were hiding their Islam. Right? So Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, as a young girl, not scared at all, just courageous, mashallah. She went up to the Quraysh, the kuffar, and told them off in their face, in their faces, and she scolded them, and she said, what is with you guys? What is with all of you throwing, you know, najis on my father? He's just praying. He's not bothering anyone. He's just praying. Right? Subhanallah, you know, brave, right? So brave, right? Tell off all these crooks and bullies. They're bullies. They're bullies, right? Basically, they're crooks. Right? So tell them off. Right? Tell them off. Right? And then Sayyidah Fatima Zahra went back, went to Rasulullah, and she cleaned off, right, the dirt on his back, and she began to cry. And it's something that Rasulullah cannot, you know, he can't bear to see her cry. Right? So she began to weep. She began to cry in front of her father because she was so upset. Right? Why must they do this? Right? Just let him pray. Right? Why must you bother him? She began to cry, and then Rasulullah said to her, "Oh my daughter, be patient. Be patient, patience. So you can see she was being trained by her father in the madrasa of Muhammad, as they call it, madrasa Muhammadiyah. It is the madrasa of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and she is a Kharijiyah. We just read it in the previous chapter. She is a graduate of the madrasa of Rasulullah ﷺ, being trained on high character. So he said to her, "Be patient, O my daughter. Right, for the religion of your father will enter into every home around the world, not in Mecca. The religion of your father will enter into every home around the world." Subhanallah. And you know, when we were doing the online dawrah a few years ago, I mean, we're still doing it every year. Mashallah, inshallah, I'm still doing this year. I'm not in Singapore, but every year since the COVID, since 2020, right, we've been doing the online dawrah. Following the same way, they do it in Tarim, but it's all online. You know, mashallah. So when we did it, one thing that Sister Aisha, who is Habib Umar's daughter, when she gave a kalima once, she said to us, she related this story to us, and she said that Habib Umar said that this is a manifestation, that the religion of Rasulullah is entering into the very rooms, the very homes of people all around the world, by an online platform. You know, right into the bedroom, you know, right into your own private phone. Right, you're listening to the religion, you know, mashallah. Right, so it's a manifestation, right, of this incident of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, right, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it was, and the way the Prophet said it, it was to honor his daughter, Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra, because she was so much in distress. She was so much in distress that he would say something to cheer her up. So he said something so immense like this. This religion will spread and will enter into every household in the entire world. And not just, and now Sadaqah Rasulullah, you're seeing it now, right? Is the whole world has this, has Islam coming into the very private quarters of a home. It comes right into your bedroom, mashallah. And mashallah, who would have thought, right into people's bedrooms, people's ears are traveling on the subway, on the MRTs, on the trains and so on, right? They're hearing Islam, wherever they go, mashallah. This is the promise of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mujahida, sabira, the one who's striving, the one who's patient. And Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra herself got her share of she got her share of violence, in fact, from the Quraysh, of aggression against her. There's a story whereby once she was walking, and because she looks exactly like the Prophet ﷺ. Yesterday we spoke about, right, when she was born. So the Khadija rejoiced at the birth of a fourth daughter. MashaAllah. In a society whereby they would detest the birth of daughters. And when they were pregnant, they were in labor. It was to this extent, the Jahiliyyah, they would go to the deserts and dig a hole, and they would give birth into the hole. If it was a boy, they would bring it home. If it's a girl, they bury there and then. There and then they bury, because the mother is too afraid to be attached to the baby, because she knows that the father will kill the baby eventually. So instead of allowing for herself to be attached to this child, she sees a girl, she just buries it there and then. If it's a boy, she brings it. So to that extent, right? The woman were cornered to that extent. They don't want to do it, but to them it's less painful between seeing the girl grow up than seeing her killed, right? As opposed to from the first moment to kill her off. It's really the hawla wala. It's just the way society was. Right? So the Khadija gave birth to a fourth girl, mashallah, was something that we say in the society was a terrible thing, like a calamity to have 4 girls in a row, mashallah. But Rasulullah was rejoicing at the birth of Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra, the 4th girl, mashallah, because she looked exactly like him. So the story goes that Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra, she was walking in Mecca, and she resembled her father exactly. And to the point Sayyidina Aisha, towards the end of Rasulullah's life, Sayyidina Aisha, she called Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra was walking towards her, and Sayyidina Aisha commented, and she said that the walk of Fatima is exactly the walk of her father, exactly, not missing a step, exactly the walk of her father, Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra. She's like the carbon copy of her father, mashallah. And of course, the female, right? So Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra was walking as a young girl. Maybe she was around this age of 8 or 9. Very young girl. She was walking in Mecca, and she looked exactly like her father, a small girl. And this Abu Jahl, right, saw her. Abu Jahl, right, the evil man. Abu Jahl, he saw her, and because she looked so much like her father, he went up to her and smacked her. He's a grown man, right? Grown man, small girl, right? For no reason at all, except that she looks like his enemy. What kind of bully or crook or coward? I don't know what to call him also. What kind of human being is that? As soon as you hate a person, you don't hurt a girl. A small girl walking around, you don't go there and just smack her, for no reason. So Abu Jahl goes up to her because she looks like the Prophet ﷺ, just because she resembles him. That's all. He hit her across the face. She fell, right? And she fell and she went to cry. And she fell on the ground and she went to cry. And Abu Jahl walks off, right? So then next, Sayyidina Umar came. And at this point in time, Sayyidina Umar was not a Muslim. This was one of the reasons why the dua of Islam came to him. And Sayyidina Umar came by. He was not a Muslim, but he was a man of justice. And he was a man who had a very strong sense of justice, right? And basically he was, like you would say, he was someone of integrity. Sayyidina Umar, of values, morals and values. Abu Jahl was a man of zero, no morals, no values, nothing. He was a monster walking around in Mecca. Even there are stories of him, of how he used to be a tyrant before even the coming of Islam, of how he used to cheat people and he used to bully people. He used to, all before the coming of Islam. There are stories. The pact of the Fudul was because of Abu Jahl cheating a foreigner. It was way before Islam, when Islam was in his 20s, this happened. So Abu Jahl was known to be a crook in Mecca. Sayyidina Umar was known for his very strong sense of justice. And that was also the same sense that pushed him into wanting to kill the Prophet ﷺ. Because he saw that Rasulullah was someone who was creating unrest. The society that was fine, and he came now with so much unrest. And so, Omar, his very strong sense of society, strong sense of community, strong sense of rights of people. So Sayyidina Umar, not being a Muslim at the time, he wasn't a Muslim yet, he came by, he saw Sayyidah Fatima Zahra crying. MashaAllah. And again, the humanity in his heart. And he stopped. If you see a girl crying on the ground, you stop. Right? And you see what's going on, what's happening. And you try and help the child. A normal human being would do that. Any normal human being, you won't just walk past a child crying. You will stop and you see, is there something I could help you with? Right? So he stops and he asks her, "Oh Fatima, why are you crying?" And she said, "Abu Jahl came by and hit me, right, for no reason." And Sayyidina Umar knew what was the reason why Abu Jahl would hit a small girl. So he said, "Sayyidina Fatima Zahra, come with me." So Sayyidina Umar went with Sayyidina Fatima Zahra. She's a small girl this time. Sayyidina Umar was in his 20s, you say. She brought Sayyidina Fatima Zahra to Abu Jahl, right? And then Sayyidina Umar said, Sayyidina Fatima Zahra, watch. He just watched. And then Sayyidina Umar goes up to Abu Jahl and he hits him across the face. So he hits Abu Jahl back, right, on behalf of Sayyidah Fatima Az-Zahra. Hit for a hit. He hit Abu Jahl in his face. And Abu Jahl was shocked. Why you. And Sayyidina Umar said that if you have animosity against her father, take it out on her father. Right? Don't go hitting her. Right? If you hit her father, go hit her father. Right? But don't hit her. But you're a coward. Abu Jahl is a coward. Whenever he's in front of Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, he will cower. He actually would cower. There are narrations of Abu Jahl in front of Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, face to face. He would cower. He was the haiba of Rasulullah ﷺ, the presence, the greatness of Rasulullah made even Abu Jahl in this way. Right? So he was a coward. And says he would hit the daughter who's 9, 8 years old because he's scared of the father. But again, he's going around being a bully, trying to bully Rasulullah. And there are many stories of Abu Jahl and how he actually would avoid the Prophet because of fear of the Prophet. He actually had he was intimidated by Rasulullah. He was as loud as he was, but Abu Jahl was actually intimidated by Rasulullah because those on falsehood, I can never stand next to those on truth. Right? Those on truth they're strong and they're firm. Those on falsehood, when they come face to face, they run away because their falsehood has no ground. MashaAllah. So that was of what she struggled with. MashaAllah, this kind of behavior, people doing this to her. But it was because of that she went back to her house. She told Nabi Muhammad ﷺ all of what happened that day, and Rasul was so pleased to Sayyidina Umar. Right? And that is why he made this dua. Ya Allah, guide the Umar who is more beloved to you between the two Umars. There are two Umars, Umar bin Hisham, who is the name of Abu Jahl, right, and Umar bin Khattab. Right? Of course, Rasul knew, right, that the more beloved Umar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Umar bin Khattab. Like, who will love Abu Jahl, right? He has all the traits that Allah hates. Sayyidina Umar actually had all the traits that Allah loves. It's just that he did Islam, the Iman in his heart, and then he would saw Sayyidina Umar, which he did. Once Iman came into his heart, Sayyidina Umar, he went high, mashallah. But that was because he defended Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. Mashallah. So by that he got hidayah. Mashallah, given to him. Mashallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. And so she And so she saw the da'wah from the beginning of the da'wah, and she lived till the very, through all of the events of the da'wah till the very end, and her jihad was and her jihad was made manifest by her being around her noble father sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For the beginning of the da'wah, to a straight path, to a straight religion, she was with him. And she was with him wherever he would go. She would follow. We mentioned that just now. She would follow her father around with him wherever he would go. Whenever he would face the disbelievers, she was there with him. Whenever and no matter, and whatever of harm, of affliction that came to him, she was there. And she was there to stop whatever that they tried to do to her father sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She had no fear. She didn't think, oh, I'm a small girl, I'm a woman, I'm a female, never. But she was there. And she would defend her father sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though she was young. Even though she was very young at this point in time. And this is one of the traits of Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra from a very young age in da'wah. MashaAllah, from age of 5. She began doing her da'wah from the age of 5. MashaAllah. Very young age, MashaAllah. And she would go wherever he would go. So as Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra grew, she grew her, her enthusiasm and her azm. And her azm meaning her resolve. Her resolve, in supporting this religion grew with her. Her defensiveness, her protectiveness of her father, her efforts in this religion grew with her. And this prepared her for the most difficult years of her life, which was her teenage years, which was the boycott. So before that, from 5 years old, all the way till she was 13 years old. 8 years, 5 to 13, 8 years. That was very difficult years in Mecca, and she was learning a lot from her father and her mother and the other Muslims on patience, on selflessness, on defending what is right, and on standing by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She would give her all for her father sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This prepared her for the 3 very difficult years of the boycott. So remember, she was a teenager when this happened during the boycott. And again, when you read the other book, Innaha Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra, the other book is a bigger book. And they actually give insight into how she went through, initially her sister getting married, Sayyidah Zainab getting married to Al-Az bin Rabi'. Al-Az bin Rabi', who was from Sayyidah Khadija's side, cousin to Sayyidah Zainab. They were cousins basically. From the side of Sayyidah Khadija, her husband was a cousin, and he did not come into Islam until later he came into Islam. So he was, in a sense, late in coming into Islam. He's the son-in-law of Rasulullah came late into Islam. She saw Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra. She saw how 2 of her sisters were at first wed to the sons of Abu Lahab, Utbah and Utaybah, and then Abu Lahab forced them to divorce her two sisters. So it was supposed to be a calamity on the family, but actually the family rejoiced. Because Rasulullah, his etiquette, his adab is so high. Because his uncle is Abu Lahab, right? He already proposed to his daughters for his sons. And there was already a marriage. There's no consummation because the girls were very young. There was already a marriage. It wasn't even like you say a betrothal or an engagement. No, it was a marriage. But it's just that in that time they call it a marriage, but there is no living together. But it's a marriage. So that's why it was a divorce. So when Rasulullah came forward as a prophet, it made him uncomfortable, that his daughters were married to the sons of Abu Lahab. It was uncomfortable for him, but he didn't want to be the one to break off the marriage, in a sense, because it's his uncle, and it would bring shame to his uncle if there was a request to break off the marriage, so Allah caused it that the uncle Abu Lahab, he said to his 2 sons, Utbah and Utaybah, that your face is haram on me to look at until you divorce the 2 daughters of Muhammad, so as to bring shame to his family. And so he'll be occupied with his daughters who are divorced. Right? So when the sons straight away they obeyed their father, right? And they divorced the two sisters of Fatima Zahra. Right? So there's a story in that book that gives us an insight into her seeing all these things happening, whereby people try to hurt and harm the family of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I also we don't forget that. And of course, when that happened, Rasulullah was happy. Right? He was relieved that his daughters were released, right, from the sons of Abu Lahab. And the best of young men in Mecca at that time, the most eligible bachelor, mashallah, in Mecca at that time, Sayyidina Uthman. I came running, knocking on the door. Ya Rasulullah, I heard that your daughters are divorced. Right? And he proposed to Sayyidah Ruqayyah. Right? And later on, he married Sayyidah Kulthum. Right? So, Rasulullah eventually, his daughters got married to the best young men in Mecca at that time, mashallah, that everybody was vying for. Sayyidina Uthman, he was handsome, he was rich, he was charismatic, he had the highest akhlaq. People in Mecca loved Sayyidina Uthman. And the proof of that is that when Rasul came later on for Hudaybiyah to enter into Mecca, and they were stopped, right, for doing their Umrah. There was they stopped the Muslims from doing Umrah. Rasulullah sent Sayyidina Uthman in. Why? Because he's beloved. People in Mecca like him. So you answer the messenger, you send someone that everybody likes. So Sayyidina Uthman was beloved by the people and respected. Right? So even though even in Islam, they would listen to him. Right, in a sense. So mashallah, so that he's also freed, right, from the sons of Abu Lahab, and it was supposed to be a humiliation. It became, an honor, right, for them, because Uthman came running in, right, and he proposed. I said the Ruqayyah, mashallah, and they were a very beautiful couple. I said Uthman and Ruqayyah, it was said that whenever people would see them, right, they would be just stunned by the beauty of Sayyidina Ruqayyah and Sayyidina Uthman, right, together. Mashallah. I cannot imagine how handsome is handsome, how beautiful. The way people be stunned and just stare at them. In some of the riwayat, mashallah. So Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, she saw this, of her sisters being divorced, and there was this attempted humiliation on the family of Rasulullah. She saw how her brother, Abdullah al-Tayyib al-Tahir. So you must all, not forget all these things are happening around her, right? So Sayyidah Khadija gave birth after her as well. So Rasulullah has a son, 4 daughters in a row, and a son, right? So this last son, Abdullah al-Tayyib al-Tahir, was born in Islam. So he was born after the Wahyu, onto Rasulullah, right? And he passed away after a year or two, right? As a toddler, mashallah, all of them. And so she saw first thing, her parents facing the death of another son. It's for her, it's a brother. She faced the death of her brother, and she saw how Abu Lahab would mock and laugh and make fun of the death of that son. And what kind of vile people are these? No matter how much you hate your enemy, you don't laugh at them when their child dies. And they're just evil, like pure evil. So when the news reached Abu Lahab, he was next door because a neighbor, right, to Rasulullah, and he would laugh out loud and say, Muhammad is cut off, his son is dead, right? It's kind of really, people are mourning. They're mourning, they're human beings, right? And this monster of an uncle, it's an uncle, monster of an uncle, right, laughing. And Sayyidah Fatima Zahra was there watching all of this happen, and watching her parents bear with it in patience, in silence and in patience. She saw all of this happening, right? And then this led to the sanction, the boycott, right? And in the boycott, again, she saw how first and foremost the family, the tribe, because the boycott was against the tribe of Rasulullah, not specifically against the Muslims. It was against the tribe. Right, so what Abu Jahl tried to do in the boycott, which was never done before in Mecca ever, right? Because Mecca was a tribal society, right? And it was family bonds. It was all about family bonds, right? So it was something unheard of to boycott your own cousins. They were basically cousins in a tribe. They're all cousins. So it was something that was unheard of, which is why many of the non-Muslims were very uncomfortable with this boycott. The believers in Mecca, they were uncomfortable with it. Because you're putting our own family members to starvation, right? Like, what kind of monsters are these? Right? So Abu Jahl forced them into it, but eventually they rebelled against Abu Jahl. right, in that. Right, so to understand Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, she saw that the family of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how they stood by him. Right? And the reason why Abu Talib, took Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the entire family into a share. A share is basically like a valley. So they actually went into a valley outside of Mecca. And the reason why they were doing that was because Abu Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah, was so frightened that the disbelievers would kill the Prophet ﷺ, because the atmosphere in Mecca was to that extent that it was as if they are going to kill him at any point in time right now. And so Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, as a young girl, she's also understanding this, that her father's life is at stake. That they are the threats against Rasulullah, the anger, the hostility, the aggression was to a point whereby even the uncle took the family out of Mecca, because out of fear on the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you can imagine, so she's understanding this. She's already now a teenager, and she's understanding her father's life is at stake. At any point in time, someone could come and just kill him. Mashallah, but of course Allah protects. So Abu Talib will be to the point whereby outside of Mecca, in the middle of the night, he will go to Rasulullah, he will wake him up and make him change to another tent. Right? Then in the night, he will wake him up and bring him again to another tent. So through the night, he will make Rasulullah change positions through the night, because he's so afraid someone is plotting to kill him. So afraid. Right, so Fatima Zahra is watching this, and she's watching all of these things. It's not just a boycott, hunger, starvation, no, but there is also the entire threat of assassination on her father. Subhanallah. You can see how stressful this entire situation is. Yeah. MashaAllah, how she can see this. And then so 3.5 years, they were boycotted. She would see Sayyidah Khadija, MashaAllah. She saw of her mother. Sayyidah Khadija, who was also her main teacher, Sayyidah Khadija and Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, she surpassed her mother, in position, because she carries the blood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the day of judgment, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra is above even Sayyidah Khadija. She is Sayyid Nisa al-Alamin. She is the best of women, without any exception, even above her own mother, Sayyidah Khadija radhiyallahu anha wa ardaha. So the story is that Allahumma Sayyidina Muhammad, Sayyidah Khadija, when she was for how many years in Mecca? Sayyidah Khadija, mashallah, she went into business at a very young age. Sayyidah Khadija, her father passed away in one of the battles. She inherited a lot of wealth from her father. So you know the history of Sayyidah Khadija, right? So now she inherited a lot of wealth from her father. She put the wealth in the hands of her nephew, who basically did trade. Tijara. I did trade and business, and this wealth grew so much. So since she was, in her 20s, or even younger than that, she was already wealthy, and she was giving to society. So anybody in her family, even anybody in Mecca who needed any financial help whatsoever, they know they could just go to Khadija and she would give them without even blinking. She would just give them. So all these years, since she was in her 20s, now she's in her 60s. Okay, so at the point of the boycott, Sayyidah Khadija is in her 60s. She passed away at the age of 65. Right, so for 40 years in Mecca, she was known as the one who would give. And she would give without restraint. She would help anyone who needed help. So the people in Mecca, they remember the goodness of Sayyidah Khadija. Right, so she had nephews, she had cousins, she had people in her tribe. People in Mecca, basically, they knew the goodness of this woman. And they felt very, very uncomfortable with what's going on. Because when they were in need, she was there to help them. And now she was suffering and they can't do anything. Right, so that led for some of them to bring food and smuggle it to the Bani Hashim, behind the back of Abu Jahl. Right, because they were not Muslims. They were not Muslims, because they felt that she was there the entire time. So they would send food for Sayyidah Khadija. So you see, the goodness of Sayyidah Khadija brought goodness for the people thereafter. So any food that was sent to Sayyidah Khadija was distributed to all of the people there, and she would take nothing. Sayyidah Khadija, the selflessness, mashallah. And so she grew very thin and very weak. Sayyidah Khadija. Rasulullah himself would take nothing. Abu Talib would take nothing. These 3 people, they will not eat anything at all, and being boycotted. And they will give whatever food that came their way, they will give it out. So the Fatima al-Zahra is watching this. And you will see this appear again in the end of her life. Right? When the poor came, the orphan came, the prisoner of war came, right? She would give and give and give everything. Not like half the wealth, or not even like a portion. She would give 100% of the wealth. It's difficult to give 100% of your wealth. It takes a lot to see your bank account go down to 0. Mashallah. It takes a lot, mashallah, to do that. A lot of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she saw this. Right? She saw the selflessness, the struggle, right? The support by the family for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? And eventually she saw how the boycott ended, and she saw the death of her mother, Sayyidah Khadija. Right? This led to the death of her mother. So she lost her mother at the age of around, at this point in time, she was 15. She was 15. She lost her mother, inshallah. Right? So a teenager. And she lost her mother, and she saw how her mother would support the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she stood and took the position of her mother. Right, so this is where we see the selflessness come in. So someone who is, she's suffering, right? She's hurting, right? Who wouldn't hurt? Your mother you love so much, and they give so much for Islam, right? Passing away, you're 15 years old. Like how who would go through these kind of things, and then see that her father is in grief, so much so that he called that very year the year of grief. He called it, the word Amul Huzn is from the Prophet himself. He called that year the year of grief, right? And he was grieving the entire year. Loss of his uncle Abu Talib, loss of his beloved wife Sayyidah Khadija, and he didn't even think to marry again after Sayyidah Khadija. He didn't think. He had to be convinced by the Sahaba. They tried to convince him. Eventually when they saw that he was kind of, not getting better in a sense, right? They began to say to him, marry again. Right? And eventually his first response was, there's no one after Khadija. Who after Khadija? No one can take her place. Then they said, just someone to handle your household affairs, cook, or, you have children, you have a teenager in the house, kind of thing. And so they kind of, try to convince him, someone to manage your household, basically. So eventually, he agreed to Sayyidah Sauda. Sayyidah Sauda, he was married to her for 3 years. And Sayyidah Aisha, also later on, Sayyidah Aisha was in Medina. She came to the house of Rasulullah. So with Sayyidah Sauda, he was with her alone for about 3 years. After the death of Sayyidah Khadija, he was with Sayyidah Sauda. Sayyidah Sauda was an older woman, and she was like a mother. And Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. And so again, Sayyidah al-Zahra having a stepmother coming in. So all issues in life, your mother dies, your father's grieving. People are getting more and more hostile. Mecca was like a dead end going on, and to the point her father had to go to Ta'if, had to do da'wah there. You can see what's going on with this girl, mashallah. At this point in time, her sister Ruqayya had migrated. And so you must put it in the family's context, right? Her family is kind of, coming apart. Her sister got married, to a man who refused to come into Islam. So she's out of the house. Another sister, Sayyidah Zainab, Sayyidah Ruqayya, and Sayyidina Uthman migrated to Habsha, to Abyssinia. So that sister's gone out of the house as well, right? Mother passes away, and the mother has passed away. She, Kulthum, right? Her father, 3 of them in the house. Imagine. MashaAllah. Allah. When you put it in that context, right? That it is difficult now.
Sayyidah Sauda passed away after 3 years?
Who? Sayyidah Sauda, no. Sayyidah Sauda outlived the Prophet ﷺ. So 3 years, he was with her for 3 years, in a sense, monogamous. Monogamous for 3 years to Sayyidah Sauda. Then he married, in a sense, Sayyidah Aisha, and became polygamous. Right? So, in a sense, it was just him and Sayyidah Sauda for quite some time. And he maintained the marriage till the end of his life. But Sayyidah Sauda, she's an older woman. Towards the end of the life of Rasulullah, she could see that he was very happy around Sayyidah Aisha. You know, mashallah. And she would give her days to Sayyidah Aisha. You know, she would basically tell Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, I give up my days, because he would be fair to all his wives, right? So she would say to him, I give up my days as long as I can remain a wife to you in Jannah. That's all I want. Just be a wife in Jannah. But in this dunya, if you want to spend more time with Aisha, go ahead. She gave up her days, which was Sayyidah Sauda. Now, she is a woman too. There is an entire, history about her. And she was someone that they chose for Rasulullah mainly because she was older, right, as a woman. She was one of the first Muslims. Right, she and her husband were first Muslims. Her husband passed away, and she was funny. She was a funny person. So she would make the Prophet laugh. Right, so they wanted someone to be, kind of like on that light side, right? Because he was grieving, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Human being, mashallah, you grieve, right, from someone that you love so much. So she would make him laugh, mashallah.
Was she older than the Prophet?
No, she wasn't. She was younger than him. But in a sense, when they say older woman, like you would mean at this point in time in her 40s, 30s or 40s, right? That would be older woman, right? As opposed to like for most women, they marry at that time in their teens, or Sayyidah Aisha was younger. She got married. But Sayyidah Sauda was still younger than Rasulullah. He was in his 50s at this time. Okay, you must put in context, right? Because Wahyu 40, right? So by the time the boycott, he's 53. Okay, and Sayyidah Sauda was younger than him. But still, so when you read the stories of Sayyidah Salama, and she says, I am an old woman. She was in her 30s. She's getting close to 40. She's like, old woman, what? But in their context, old. In their context, I'm an old woman. But he was 50 plus. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's why his response to her was, I'm old too. Like, you're old, I'm old too. We're both old, mashallah. But she was in her 30s at the time when she said that she was an old woman. MashaAllah.
Was she a widow?
Sayyidah Salama, yes.
So
yes, a widow. She was a widow. Sayyidah Salama was a widow. And here you see how Rasulullah, when he chose, they actually proposed to him two people. Sayyidah Sauda and Sayyidah Aisha. They were both proposed to him or suggested to him to marry one of them. He chose Sayyidah Sauda. So you can see practicality. Like a young virgin, girl, like an older woman, you have teenagers in the home. Right? You need someone to do housework, someone to handle the household affairs. Right? So you can see clearly his intention in getting married, right, is not like to have fun with a woman, right? But he was looking for someone to handle his family. Right? So you go for an older woman. Right? Because of teenagers in the house. You need someone to handle the teenagers. Right? Sayyidah Aisha was a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah commanded the marriage of Sayyidah Aisha. In the dream, but he saw someone bring Sayyidah Aisha to him, and the face was covered, and he uncovered, and they said, this is your wife. Right? In a dream. And it was said, this is your wife, and he saw the face of Sayyidah Aisha. It was a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how we understand, all this marriage of Rasulullah and how we can defend it. From people who say that he was lustful, there is no indication nor proof, of any lusting at all. Because if you think it's lustful, then why choose the older woman, right? Mashallah, mashallah. Right? There's so many proofs of this, and every single marriage there was a reason, either a commandment, or he was trying to do something political, to bring together tribes. And so on and so forth. Every marriage had a reason why he did this particular marriage. Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, right, she took part, let me just finish off the chapter, inshallah. She took part in the battles that the father faced. It is said here, the battle of Uhud. Right, she was there on the day of Uhud with those who strove. She would tend to the wounds, and she would give water to those who were facing death. So she was like a nurse, like a first aid. And the woman would tend to do that. The women who were there, who were not in a sense, trained on warfare. There were some women who could fight, and they were trained on warfare. Like Sayyidina Nusayba, she was very well known as a warrior, right, in Islam, and a woman who's a warrior, mashallah. To the point one of the times whereby she was fighting, she was so covered that the kuffar didn't know it was a woman fighting because of how strong she was. So when the kafir realized it's a woman, right, they got so ashamed that they got defeated by a woman, mashallah. But Sayyidina Nusayba, she was known for her strength and for her archery and for her sword fighting and so on. But most of the women, they were first aid. They were there for first aid. As they give water, they would tend to the wounds and so on. So Fatima Zahra was one of those. And on the day of Uhud, right, so you say, Mudawiya Tabiba, right, she was like a nurse or a doctor. And on the day of Uhud, right, the helmet of Rasulullah ﷺ pierced into his cheek. Right, on the day of Uhud, it pierced into his cheek. I say Abu Ubaidah pulled it out, right, from his cheek. Right, and it caused for Sayyidina Abu Ubaida's teeth to fall out because it was so hard into the cheek of Rasulullah that when he pulled it out, right, his teeth fell out. Right, but it was that he looked more handsome after that, mashallah, because he gave his teeth for Rasulullah. Right, and then the blood began to flow. Right, as ever Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, he put his mouth there to stop it, right, from flowing, but it still flowed. Right, from the face of Rasulullah, and Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, she was washing it. She brought some water, she went to wash it, and it still flowed. Then she remembered what her father told her once before: to stop the flow of blood, put ashes. She got some, mashallah, you need to figure it out how this works. Put ashes. So she went to get some leaves and burnt it. Sorry, here. She burnt it and took the ashes and she placed it on the wound and the bleeding stopped. It's all prophetic medicine. I put ashes. I know that the other day, how about Aishin was saying that in Tarim, they would use the ashes of the bukhur. Even bukhur is ashes left behind. They would use it and rub it on their armpits as deodorant. I've not tried it. Don't call me on it. But I heard it. I saw it. I don't know if I'm going to try it out.
Actually, yeah, it's charcoal.
Charcoal, right?
They use charcoal.
Yeah, they use charcoal, right? Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, the thing. So they would just say they use something natural. They use the charcoal, to do it. Subhanallah, Allah alam. Mashallah. So she put the ashes on the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And she nursed him until the pain went away. Right? And she was someone of patience. She was someone of who would take little in life. Right? Especially here, it mentions the boycott. She went through the boycott, and she learned from her mother selflessness in the boycott, and eventually she saw the death of her mother. Right? But she was patient the entire while. Right? She was content with Allah's decree. Allah took her mother at that age. And he says here, and what is courage except to be patient, right, when you are afflicted? That is courage, right? To be patient at the point of affliction, right? And to be and to find success, right, in the hereafter with every form of patience that you went through. And he ends with the ayat of the Quran: "Salamun alaykum bima sabartum." Right, peace be upon you as what you were patient about. فَنِعْمَ أُقْبَ الدَّارِ. Right, and what a beautiful, the best outcome is the hereafter. Right, for those who are patient. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Radiallahu anha wa ardaha. Any questions? Any questions?
How old was she when it was time to boycott?
During the boycott, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, she was 13 to 15. Of a 16. She was at 5 years old was the revelation. 8 years, the boycott happened in the year 7. Year 7 of revelation, right? So it's been from 5 to around 13 or 12, around there, and then 3 years of boycott, right? So up to the year 10. The year 10, Sayyidah Khadijah passes away, right? And then 3 years in Mecca. Right, 3 years because first year he met the Ansar, the first group Ansar. Second year they made the first pledge at Aqaba, and the third year they made the second pledge of Aqaba, and then the migration. She's very fast, right, mashallah. So by the time she migrated, she was 18. She got married after migration at 18. As you go in that way, you will see how the age is. So at 18 years old, when they migrated to Medina, that was when the proposals began coming in. For Sayyidah Fatimah Az-Zahra, she was 18. Right, so, so from the age of around 13 to 15 or 12 to 15, she went to the boycott. An age whereby, how many of our teenagers will be that selfless, inshallah, and giving of themselves and seeing the death of their mother thereafter. And so it's why there's a statement that goes, it's a very true statement, mashallah. Difficult times bring about fine men. Right? Difficult times bring about fine men. And fine men bring about easy times. And easy times bring about corrupt men. And corrupt men bring about difficult times. It's a cycle, mashallah. Difficult times, then good human beings come out. And because of these people, good times come about. Because there are good times, like the kids get spoiled and they get all corrupted. And because they are corrupted, they will lead to bad times. It's like a cycle. And you will see it in Islam. You will see it. There was a golden period of Islam because the Sahaba, built a society. Then those that came after were corrupt. And they were all money and all dunya and so on. And they caused for a fitna to happen, and then things went down. Mashallah. Allahu A'lam. Allah teach us of the ways of Sayyidah Fatimah Az-Zahra and of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and clothe us with the character of Sayyidah Fatimah Az-Zahra, and allow us to face difficulty. Right? And her whole life is difficult. You see it because she went through the entire years of da'wah. Right? The whole life is difficulty from start to end. Right? But you don't find a single time whereby she complained. Right? Nor do you find any instance, of her being upset about her life. But you will find that when she gets upset, it is more of her worries of the hereafter, of her death, of modesty and so on. Things that you should worry about. Mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. No other questions? She what?
Some that would have had children, did her children during the household?
Sayyidah Sauda, as far as I know, she didn't have children. But I will check it out. But as far as I know, there was no children from that side. I know the only stepchildren of the Prophet ﷺ was from Salama. She had two from Sayyidah Khadija, of course. Sayyidah Khadija, 3 stepchildren.
3?
Yeah, she had 3 before she married Rasulullah Sallallahu. Sayyidah Khadija had a lot of children, mashallah.
But she came with Khadija Fatima.
Yes.
She came with her Sayyidah
Yes.
Khadija.
Yes.
She married her.
Yes. Sayyidah Khadija had 3, Hind and Hala, if I'm not wrong. Right? She had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, from both her previous husbands. So one husband she bore 1 child, the other husband she bore 2 children. Then she married Rasulullah. So he married her with stepchildren, right? And then she bore 6 with the Prophet. So Sayyidah Khadija has 9 altogether. She has 9 altogether. And then, as far as I know, the wives of Rasulullah, none of them brought children with them into the marriage, except Salama. Salama had, I think, 3 children. And she brought into the marriage from Abu Salama, right, who passed away in jihad. Sayyidah Fatimah Az-Zahra, if you want to count, she has altogether, right, so there's 9 Sayyidah Khadija, right? There's 1 more Ibrahim from later on. Right, so there are 10 of them altogether are siblings, either full siblings or half siblings. So Sayyidah Fatimah Az-Zahra has, so she has a brother, right? She has a brother from Sayyidah Khadija, half brother. If you remember, if you can think of it in that way. So there are like 10 of them. So there's
1 boy and 2 girls.
yes. And the 2 boys and 1 girl. 2 boys and 1 girl. 2 boys and 1 girl. So the Khadija had, mashallah.
Did they grow up in the household of Rasulullah?
Yes.
Or were they all young?
Yes, and they all became Muslim. And you'll find their names appear in the Shama'il. And they were very good at describing Rasulullah. So their names will appear when they describe the Prophet. So they were the step children of the Prophet. They were around. They were in the household. They were the children of Sayyidah Khadija, mashallah. And he would love them, and they loved him as well. They were stepchildren. She opened the entire family up. MashaAllah. There were all these people around. MashaAllah. And Fatihah.